Previously, Fang Yuan shattered every expectation by becoming the first student to reach rank 1 middle stage. He refused the title of class leader, rejected the clan's attempt to bind him with status, and continued to seize primeval stones from his classmates by force. But his growing power has drawn far more dangerous eyes, now with Gu Jin Sheng missing, the liquor worm exposed, and the Gu Yue clan's council watching his every word. Fang Yuan must turn suspicion itself into a weapon. Let us continue with episode 5. From the third floor window, the academy elder had seen everything that had just happened in the training ground. His gaze followed Fang Yuan's figure as he left the fighting platform. His brows drew slightly together. For the first time, a truly unpleasant feeling rose in his heart. He had not expected that youth to leave like that. Not angry, not impulsive, not provoked by taunts, nor revealing even the slightest loss of control. Everything was too calm to the point of making people uncomfortable. Because in the elder's eyes, the hardest kind of student to handle had never been the troublemaker, nor the stubborn one. It was the kind who did not know fear. Those other unruly students, even if they disobeyed, even if they rebelled, still in the end retained fear in their hearts, still remained ruled by emotion. And as long as they knew fear, they could still be bent. As long as they could still be stirred up, they could still be manipulated. But Fang Yuan was different. The academy elder remembered every one of his expressions very clearly. Indifferent, calm, as if he had long since seen through all the performances in this academy. Even when facing a teacher, he did not hold the slightest trace of fear. That was the thing the elder hated most. Not because Fang Yuan had made mistakes, but because in his heart he did not care in the least about the rules and authority of the academy. He was not afraid, and the one who knew no fear was the real source of future trouble. The academy elder understood one thing very clearly. A student like that, if he were not pressed down, would sooner or later become a thorn stabbing into the whole collective. Not only would he himself escape control, he could also plant a dangerous seed in the hearts of the other students. Why should one fear the teachers? Why should one respect the academy? So in the elder's heart, the conclusion had already been made long ago. Fang Yuan had to be suppressed. He absolutely had to be suppressed. Unfortunately, thinking was easy, doing was much harder. Because that youth was too slippery. He knew the academy rules by heart. Normally, he never committed any obvious mistakes. Even when dozing in class, the moment he was questioned, he still answered fluently, leaving no openings behind. It was difficult to catch hold of his weakness, and even harder to find an excuse to press him down. The academy elder could not lower himself into the sort of person who stirred up trouble for no reason with a mere youth. He had to preserve the image of fairness and uprightness, had to maintain the outward appearance of a teacher. And that very thing had turned into shackles that prevented him from acting as he pleased. So he could only temporarily shift his gaze elsewhere. Toward the remaining youths in the training ground. Toward the 3 names he regarded as the true seeds of this class. Fang Zheng, Chi Cheng, Mo Bei. In his eyes, those 3 were the real hope of the academy. 1 grade A, 2 grade Bs, with elders supporting them from behind. Whichever of them first led the way into the middle stage would become the true spearpoint of this class. From above, the academy elder could also see another thing even more clearly. Amid the youth scattered across the training ground, 3 circles had silently formed. One revolved around Chi Cheng, one around Fang Zheng, and the remaining one around Mo Bei. Those circles were still loose, their members still shifting back and forth. But in the eyes of an old fox like the academy elder, the sign was already far too clear. This was not merely classmates gathering together. It was the miniature model of the forces that would later exist in the clan. The children thought they were only fighting one another, competing for rewards, snatching a bit of little fame. But in truth, from this very moment, the academy had already begun filtering out who was a leader, who was a follower, and who had the qualifications to be drawn into the machinery of the clan in the future. That was the true meaning of these struggles that seemed to arise on their own. Not only to teach the children how to fight, but also to teach them which side to stand on, whom to follow, and little by little to bind them into a larger order than themselves. Naturally, among those 3 circles there was still one person standing outside, Fang Yuan. It was not that no one had ever wanted to rely on him, nor that no one had ever thought of standing on the same side as him. But he had pushed all of them away. He accepted no one, needed no one, and could not even be bothered to melt into any group. He stood there alone, solitary, lonely, as if deliberately separating himself from the entire academy. And that very thing made the academy elder even more uneasy. Because someone who stood in no circle meant someone not bound by any circle. Not held back by friendship, not controlled by the group, and not easily led around by the clan S-strings the way the other children were. But then the academy elder comforted himself again. It did not matter, Fang Yuan was still young. He was still within the academy. And as long as he remained in the academy, sooner or later, he would be dragged into this machinery. Class leader, vice leader, rewards, honors, titles, small power, great resources. All of these things looked on the surface like mere encouragement for children. But in truth, they were each links in a chain for binding a person into the system. The academy elder understood that method of operation all too well. First, fill the children's heads with the idea that the clan comes above all else. Then teach them kinship, friendship, love. Next, use rewards to pull them, positions to invite them in, and rules to mold them. One hand held the carrot, one hand held the stick. In this way, even the most rebellious child, the loneliest child, the most defiant child, sooner or later would be assimilated. That was the power of the academy and also the power of the clan. There was no need to rush, no need to hurry. As long as enough time passed, everyone would eventually be placed into the proper position. From the high building, the academy elder once again looked down toward the training ground. There Fang Yuan still stood by himself. His hands clasped behind his back, his eyelids slightly lowered, in the middle of an empty space no one wished to enter. He seemed cut off from every sound around him, cut off from the crowd, cut off even from the atmosphere surging up through the academy. The academy elder looked at him for a long time, his gaze deepened. In his heart there remained only one gloomy thought. You can be lonely, you can be defiant, but one day or another the clan will still drag you inside. Because in this world, the most frightening thing had never been a single strong person, but a machine patient enough to grind down everything. And the academy was the first place where that machine began to operate. Night covered the village, the moon hung high. Cold silver light spread across the stone courtyard, the rooftops, and the silent tree canopies stirring in the night wind. But beneath that outward quiet, each person was secretly preparing for his own battle. At the Mo residence, Mo Bei stood in the courtyard, head raised toward the moon. In the eyes of that 15-year-old youth, there was no longer the impulsiveness of before. This time, a kind of sobriety had begun to appear. Mo Yan walked over from behind. She had originally heard that her younger brother had been injured again today. And in her heart had worried at least somewhat that he had been shaken too badly. But the moment she saw that smile, she quietly let out a breath of relief. As for Mo Bei, he smiled brightly, he was not frightened at all. On the contrary, he seemed to have just seen something that others had not yet realized. He spoke with certainty. Today's exchange had revealed one thing. Fang Yuan was no longer as effortless as before. His breathing had turned chaotic. His physical strength had reached its limit. That proved that the shadow which had seemed impossible to defeat was, after all, not truly invincible the way everyone had thought. That was the first ray of light Mo Bei had seen after a chain of days of being suppressed. A very tiny crack, but enough to reignite the full fighting will inside him. He no longer wanted only revenge. He had already begun to form plans. In the days ahead, he would no longer continue training fists and feet, nor try to struggle for short-term victory. Instead, he would pour all his strength into nurturing his aperture and charge straight into rank 1 middle stage. Seize the class leader position first, then use his grade B aptitude to press Fang Yuan's reputation back down. Within those words, there was not only competitive pride, but also the first time that Mo Bei had truly placed cultivation level and the larger picture at the center. This was no longer a youth who only knew how to rush forward with his fists, but someone beginning to learn how to win through choice. Almost at the same time, over at the Kai family, the atmosphere was much heavier. Inside the secret chamber, there was only a single great flame throwing wavering shadows on the wall. In that firelight, Gu Yue Kai Lion sat opposite his grandson Chi Cheng. There were no gentle words of encouragement, nor any peaceful moonlight like at the Mo residence. Here there was only the cold reality of a family trying to hold together the shell of genius. Thread after thread of silver-white primeval essence slowly poured from the old man's hand into Chi Cheng's abdomen. His grandson had to grit his teeth and endure it, exhausting all his spirit to suppress the primeval sea within his aperture. The slightest tiny slip, and the whole foundation of his cultivation could be damaged. This was the path of forcibly burning through stages, dangerous, coercive, and certain to leave obvious aftereffects. But the Kai family had no better choice. Because Chi Cheng's true aptitude was only grade C. If they did not forcibly raise him through the methods of the elders, then sooner or later, the shell of grade B genius would crack right before everyone's eyes. Kai Lion explained it very clearly. Each time he poured primeval essence in like this, he was using another person's strength to grind down the walls of his grandson's aperture. It had an effect, yes, but in exchange his future would narrow. The path of development afterward would only become narrower and narrower. Even so, Chi Cheng still lowered his head and accepted it, without hesitation and without complaint. Because he understood very clearly that what rested on his shoulders was not only his personal future, but also the face of the entire Kai family. Then Kai Lion mentioned something else. A goo so rare that it was hard to find on the market, the liquor worm, if they could obtain it. Then the entire process of nourishing the aperture would become far easier, far safer, far cleaner, and would not leave behind traces of foreign-type primeval essence, the way the current method did. The old man said that he had already sent people to search everywhere. But a goo like that was simply too precious. And almost the moment it appeared, it would immediately be bought up by someone else. At that point, even a person like Kai Lion could not hide the regret on his face. Because he did not know that the thing he was searching for so painstakingly had in fact long since fallen into someone else's hands. That same night, Fang Zheng sat alone in his room. There were no elders beside him to help, no secret art to force things through, nor any elder secretly pouring primeval essence into him. He relied only on his genuine grade A aptitude, silently grinding away at his primeval sea bit by bit. Outside the window, the bright moon hung in the sky, bamboo buildings stood one after another, and the scenery was peaceful like a painting. But in Fang Zheng's heart there was not the slightest peace. He opened his hand. 2 primeval stones had already turned to dust. In his money pouch there were only the last 3 stones left. The academy allowance was originally 3 stones, but each time Fang Yuan took one away. The living money given by his uncle and aunt was also limited, and he did not want to continue opening his mouth to ask for more. So to him now, every single primeval stone was as precious as blood. But in those cramped circumstances, his will instead became even stronger. 3 days, at most 4 more days, he believed that he would certainly be able to step into the middle stage. And when that happened, the first person he wanted to surpass was naturally still his elder brother, in his mind. Grade A aptitude remained his greatest source of pride. The thing that would sooner or later prove every difference. The sword he believed would one day definitely slash apart Fang Yuan's shadow. Meanwhile, in the academy dormitory, the person all of them were aiming at still sat alone in the darkness. The room door was shut tight. No lamp, no sound. Only Fang Yuan sitting cross-legged on the bed, his consciousness sinking deep into his aperture. He was not sleeping. Because tonight he had felt very clearly that he lacked only the final step. One step enough to pierce through the screen, separating the initial stage from the middle stage. In the primeval sea, blue-green primeval essence rolled up in great waves. This time it was no longer light collisions, but wave after wave of violent surges, crashing continuously into the aperture wall like a herd of wild horses madly battering a gate. Each impact consumed primeval essence at a terrifying speed, but in exchange the wall of the aperture also began to tremble. The white light on its surface at first merely wavered slightly, then more strongly, until it transformed into something entirely different. The smooth white membrane twisted, shrank, and then gradually transformed into a thicker spherical water membrane, more stable, deeper. His aperture had finally stepped into rank 1 middle stage. At that moment, Fang Yuan opened his eyes. A loud laugh burst out in the dark room. It was not a mad laugh, nor childish joy, but the smile of someone who had once again managed to advance one more step on his road of survival. And the most ironic thing was that just as he finished his breakthrough, the first sunlight of the morning also pierced through the crack of the door. One night had passed, a new day had arrived. And along with it, a new trouble had reached the very door. Bang. The dormitory door was kicked open. 2 guards charged straight in. Their shouted voices crashed through the room still full of night air. Fang Yuan, you skipped class without cause. The academy elder wants to see you, come with us at once. In only an instant, the quiet air of the morning was torn apart. The race into the middle stage had just come to an end. Another confrontation immediately began. That morning, the academy was suddenly missing one person. Fang Yuan's seat was still empty. And standing on the lecturing platform was the academy elder. That fact alone was enough to make the whole class begin whispering. Some were gloating. Some laughed at his misfortune. Others quietly waited to see how Fang Yuan would be taught a lesson this time. In everyone's eyes, this was almost too good a chance for the academy to strike back. Ever since Fang Yuan blocked the gate, robbed stones, and suffocated the whole class under pressure, he had already long since stood opposite all of them. So the moment they saw him in trouble, all of them felt a sense of satisfaction in their hearts. And what about the academy elder? On the surface, his expression was ugly in the extreme, as though his anger were about to explode. But in truth, in his heart he was calculating coldly. Because he understood very well that there was no need to look elsewhere anymore. This time, Fang Yuan had personally delivered a mistake to the very door. Skipping class during the academy elder's own session. That fact alone was enough for him to use the chance to suppress Fang Yuan, smash down his growing momentum, and pull the rest of the students out from under the fear pressing upon their necks. So very quickly after that, the academy elder tapped the table, called in the guards, and then right in front of the whole class, gave the order to bring Fang Yuan here. The moment the 2 guards turned and left, the whole academy almost exploded. The youths no longer had the mind to listen to the lesson. In each heart there remained only one thing, waiting to see how Fang Yuan would be dragged before the academy elder. Some imagined that he would be scolded. Others waited to see him punished by having to stand outside in the corridor. Still others hoped that he would be humiliated badly enough that the shadow pressing down upon the whole class would finally crack. The academy elder thought so too. In his mind, he had even already prepared the punishment. Not too severe, but humiliating enough so that after class ended all the students would see it. Because sometimes, a punishment did not need to be too painful. It only needed to strike in the right place to break a person's momentum. Time passed just like that. Outwardly the whole class was silent, but inwardly every one of them was burning like fire. Then at last from outside in the corridor, the sound of footsteps could be heard. The moment that sound entered their ears, dozens of pairs of eyes lit up at once. The whole academy tensed unconsciously. The academy elder narrowed his eyes. In his heart, the scene he had long prepared was finally about to raise its curtain. The footsteps stopped before the door, a knocking sound followed. One student nearest the door eagerly stood up, laughing, delighted, as though he had been given the best seat in the house to watch the show from the front row. But the instant the door opened just a crack, everything changed at once. The smile on his face froze. His complexion turned chalk white. His whole body trembled violently, as though someone had thrown him straight into an ice pit. Then with a panicked cry, he toppled to the floor and both he and his desk crashed down in disorder. The entire class froze. No one understood what had just happened. They only knew that whoever stood outside the door was absolutely not the appearance they had imagined. The door slowly opened wider. Sunlight from the corridor flooded in, so bright that everyone had to narrow their eyes. And at the center of that stream of light, a figure appeared. First came an arm, a youth's arm, dyed red, thick with the smell of blood. Then after that, the entire figure gradually came into view. It was Fang Yuan. but no longer the calm youth they were used to seeing in the academy. His whole body was stained with the marks of having just come out of a violent clash. His expression was cold, his eyes were deep. Calm to the point that it made people feel chilled. And the thing even more terrifying was that in his hand he was still dragging a guard. This man no longer moved, and was being dragged across the ground like living proof that everything those students had just imagined moments earlier had all been wrong. It was not the guards escorting Fang Yuan in. It was Fang Yuan walking in by himself, carrying with him a scene that left the entire academy numb. In the blink of an eye, the whole classroom exploded. Some sprang up from their seats, some turned deathly pale, panicked cries sounded out. They had feared Fang Yuan had been beaten by him, had once been blocked by him in the road. But not until this very moment did they truly understand what terror meant. Even the academy elder himself froze for a brief instant. He had never thought events would develop this far. The two guards had merely been sent to fetch back one student who had skipped class. Yet in the end, what stepped through the academy door was a scene this shocking. Then after that brief stunned silence, the academy elder's fury also exploded. Not simply because of what had happened to a guard, but because this strike had landed directly on the face of the academy, directly on his authority. Who were the academy guards? They were the academy's hands and feet. They were the symbol of the academy elder's orders. To lay hands on them was no different from laying hands upon the dignity the academy had built over so long. So this time the academy elder was truly enraged. He shouted loudly, his voice like thunder exploding in the deathly silent room. Asking what exactly Fang Yuan had done. Asking what gave him the right to go this far, and most importantly, demanding an explanation. If there was not a strong enough reason, then this time even the clan prison would no longer be an empty threat. No one in the class dared even breathe loudly. The atmosphere had thickened into something strangling. On one side was the academy elder, his fury overflowing to the heavens. On the other side was Fang Yuan, his whole body stained with blood, standing silently in the doorway. As if with only a single wrong sentence, everything would instantly shatter apart. But the thing that truly sent chills through everyone was that Fang Yuan still showed no disorder at all. He released his grip, letting the guard fall directly into the pool of blood spreading across the floor. Then slowly cupped his hands and bowed to the academy elder. His voice remained courteous and steady, not loud, yet rising clearly through the academy hall, so silent it felt eerie. Academy elder, this junior truly has something to report. The academy elder stared fixedly at him. In his eyes, frost and fury intertwined. He wanted to hear what Fang Yuan could still say, wanted to see how he meant to turn the situation around. In the academy, all eyes were fixed on Fang Yuan. Some were horrified, some mocking, some sharp, cold, waiting for him to collapse before the elder's very eyes. But Fang Yuan seemed not to notice any of it. He merely stood there, his whole body stained with blood, his clothes disordered after a fierce clash. Then seriously pointed down at the guard lying motionless on the ground and began reporting. As if he himself were the victim. He told the story very quickly, very urgently, so urgently that he allowed no one any chance to interrupt. That right when he had been attempting to break into the middle stage, those two guards had forcibly smashed open the door and barged in. That for a cultivating Gu master, the moment of stepping into a new realm was the most dangerous time. And the slightest disturbance could ruin the aperture. That his luck had been great enough for him to still make it through that gate. Then he pushed the story even further. According to him, those two guards had not only failed to realize their mistake, but had proactively attacked him, and had even dared use the academy elder's name to insult the Gu Yue ancestors in order to force him into submission. So that was why he had resisted, why he had fought them to the end, why he had defeated them. The most frightening part was that he did not claim to be wholly innocent, nor did he try to play the role of a gentle victim driven to the wall. He admitted that he had struck very heavily, but very skillfully pushed all of it toward the idea of being forced by circumstance, emphasizing that he had still shown restraint, had not taken their lives, and now only hoped that the academy elder would step forward to preside over justice. At that moment, the whole academy finally managed to react. But the thing that shocked them most was no longer whether the two guards lived or died, but another sentence entirely. Fang Yuan had stepped into the middle stage. The whole class exploded. No one could believe that someone with grade C aptitude had become the first person to step through that gate, surpassing even grade A and grade B talents. This was no longer merely shocking. It was something that directly smashed apart everything they believed. Even the Academy Elder's voice turned cold with warning, telling him he should think carefully before fabricating such a great lie. Because the so-called middle stage was not something that could simply be claimed with one sentence to deceive others. But Fang Yuan did not argue, did not explain further, only smiled faintly and calmly said, "Please inspect Academy Elder." So the elder stepped forward, placed a hand on Fang Yuan's abdomen, and probed his spirit directly into the aperture. And then what he saw caused even him to feel a shock in his heart. Middle stage primeval essence, a middle stage water membrane, an aperture that had truly completed the transformation. It was not fake, not a trick, but the truth. When the Academy Elder slowly withdrew his hand, the entire Academy was almost holding its breath. Then the confirmation came, cold as ice. It truly is middle stage. Those 4 words alone were enough to turn all the whispers into a real shockwave. Fang Zheng's face turned pale. The confidence from the night before had not even had time to fade before today. It was crushed to pieces before his eyes. Mo Bei clenched his fists tight. Chi Cheng ground his teeth until blood rose. And as for the other students, they could only look at Fang Yuan, as if looking at something entirely outside ordinary reason. The Academy Elder was no better. In his heart there was both shock and suspicion. He did not understand, truly did not understand. A grade C like Fang Yuan, what on earth had he relied on to advance so quickly? He asked directly, wanting to hear an answer. And Fang Yuan only smiled and replied with extreme brevity, "Heaven rewards diligence." This student studied hard and trained bitterly, accumulated over days and months, so everything simply came naturally. Of course, no one believed that answer. The students immediately erupted, some cursing him for lying, others sneering. Because if hard work alone could overcome talent, then aptitude would have meant nothing at all. But what mattered did not lie in whether they believed it, but in the fact that the Academy Elder could not continue pressing him. Because the more he pressed, the more it proved that he was targeting the secret of an outstanding student, and the more he pressed, the easier it became to expose the true face of suppression. And Fang Yuan knew that very clearly. So he looked straight back at the elder, not avoiding him, not fearing him. And in his eyes, there was even a faint trace of mockery, almost impossible to detect. At that very moment, the Academy Elder understood something even more hateful than the matter of the middle stage. Fang Yuan was not only strong, not only tough, but extraordinarily skilled at using the Elder's own position against him. Because the Academy Elder possessed authority, but at the same time was locked in place by the identity of one who must be fair. That was both his greatest strength and his greatest chain. And Fang Yuan had seen through that long ago. He had deliberately exposed the 2 guards. Deliberately pushed the whole matter into broad daylight. Deliberately forced the elder into the most unpleasant choice possible. If the truth were turned over, then the elder would have to deal with the slander right in front of everyone's eyes. But if he punished too heavily, then it would turn into openly suppressing a student who had just broken through, and who was also the leading student of the class. And if he let it go, that would be the same as swallowing this obstruction with his own hands. This was where the real skill lay. Fang Yuan was not striking at the Elder's strength. He was striking at the Elder's identity, striking at the shell of fair and upright that the Elder was forced to preserve. So the more he thought, the more stifled the Academy Elder felt. Those 2 guards had originally been nothing more than expendable pawns, but now they had become evidence that caused him to lose face. Not saving them was impossible, but punishing more heavily was also impossible. And the youth who had created all of this stood right in front of him, calm and composed. Worse still, the elder now had to praise him, or at least could not openly suppress him. Because what was the academy for? It existed to cultivate talent for the clan. if a student who had led the class in breaking through to middle stage were still openly oppressed, then the first person to be questioned would not be Fang Yuan, but the academy elder himself. He understood all of it, understood it very clearly, and so became even angrier. This was no longer about skipping class. This had become a true exchange of blows. On one side stood the academy elder, holding the rules of the academy in his hands. On the other side stood the youth who had seen through those very rules and turned them into a blade against him. And this time the academy elder had lost, not lost in strength, but lost because he was forced to remain inside the shell of his own role. While Fang Yuan was bound by nothing except the purpose of victory. In the end, after all the fury, humiliation, and suffocating resentment, the academy elder could only extend a hand and lightly pat Fang Yuan on the shoulder. On the surface, he still had to preserve the bearing of a teacher, still had to preserve the calm appearance of the one in charge of the academy. Then, through clenched teeth, he forced out a few words, "Good boy." And in reply, Fang Yuan only said one sentence, one even more painful than mockery itself. "It is all thanks to the academy's instruction." At that moment, the corner of the academy elder's eye twitched very slightly. Because he understood better than anyone that these words sounded respectful, but in truth were like a silent slap. Fang Yuan had won, and had even won under the very name of the academy. And from that moment on, all the students in the class also began to understand one thing. Fang Yuan was not only terrifying in fists and feet, not only in coldness, but also in the fact that he dared stand head-on against the whole machinery. And even stand over that machinery, take a dump on its head, and then force the machinery to swallow that lump of shit without being able to do a thing about it. Everything had gone according to Fang Yuan's calculations. After that direct confrontation in the academy, those two guards had kept their lives, but they were effectively ruined. The academy elder had no choice but to have them treated and then expel them. As for the one who had caused all of it, not only was he not punished, he was instead publicly praised in front of everyone. That outcome did not make the youths feel any relief. It only drove the fear in their hearts one layer deeper. Because by now they understood one thing very clearly. Fang Yuan did not only know how to fight, did not only know how to force people, he also knew how to turn around the very rules standing above his head. That was the thing that truly made people's scalps go numb. But the storm had not stopped at the academy. The news gradually spread through the entire clan. A grade C aptitude had actually overtaken grade A and grade B talents to become the first person to enter the middle stage. That fact alone was enough to turn the name Fang Yuan into a topic of discussion throughout the entire mountain village. People began to guessing in every possible way. Some mentioned relic Gu, some talked about the liquor worm, others believed he must have encountered some great opportunity unknown to everyone else. The more they discussed, the more chaotic it became, and the more chaotic it became, the harder it was to grasp his secret. And that was exactly what Fang Yuan wanted. If he had spoken plainly from the very beginning, perhaps it would not have created such an effect. But he had deliberately concealed it, speaking half-truths and half-lies enough to make others curious, but not enough to let them be certain. On the surface, Gu Yue Mountain Village still looked peaceful. But beneath that calm surface, there were already countless eyes secretly fixed on the academy. They were waiting for an explanation from the academy elder, because with his status, if he did not even know what method one of his own students had used to break through, then that was no longer a small oversight. Time passed like that, and then the second person to step into the middle stage appeared. It was Mo Bei. Immediately after that, only 3 hours later, Fang Zheng also successfully broke through. Chi Cheng was the fourth. Even with his elder forcibly helping him, he could still only take third place in that race. At last, the day of distributing primeval stones arrived again. This time, the academy elder wasted no words. He called out the very first name at once, Gu Yue Fang Yuan. In an instant, every gaze in the academy once again fell on him. Jealousy, admiration, suspicion, hatred, curiosity, every kind of feeling intertwined inside one and the same room. Everyone knew that today was not only the day allowances were handed out, but also the day the class leader and vice leaders would be determined. And under normal logic, the first person to step into middle stage would naturally become class leader. The Academy elder handed Fang Yuan the reward pouch of primeval stones, 30 pieces, not one short. Fang Yuan accepted it, then right in front of the elder and the whole class, slowly opened it and checked every single stone one by one. That action left quite a few people stunned, but to him it was only something completely normal. In this world, the most trustworthy one had always only been oneself. Seeing this, the Academy elder quietly gave rise to another thought. In his eyes, Fang Yuan's behavior proved only one thing. He lacked primeval stones, lacked them badly. And as long as he still had a need for primeval stones, sooner or later he would be dragged into the clan's machinery. So he followed the flow and declared immediately, Fang Yuan was the first to reach middle stage. According to Academy rules, he would receive 30 primeval stones, gain the right to choose his second Gu worm first, and be appointed class leader. At that very instant, the Academy immediately broke into uproar. Some sighed, some gritted their teeth. Mo Bei was unwilling. Chi Cheng could only look on with a cold face. And the one struck the deepest was still Fang Zheng. Because if Fang Yuan became class leader, then even if Fang Zheng became a vice leader, under the rules he would still have to bow in greeting to his elder brother. To Fang Zheng, that was no different from a knife stabbing straight into the pride that had only just begun to rise. But just when everyone thought everything had already been decided, Fang Yuan opened his mouth. His voice was calm as still water. Academy elder, this student's talent and learning are shallow. I am not fit to shoulder the position of class leader. Please let someone more capable take it. At that moment, the entire academy seemed to explode. No one believed their ears. Refuse, he was truly refusing it. That was not only a title, but also 10 primeval stones of stipend each term. The glory of standing at the top. The position countless youths dreamed of. Even the academy elder himself stood stunned. In all his years of teaching, this was the first time he had seen someone actively refuse the position of class leader. Because in his original calculation, this had been a very beautiful move. As long as Fang Yuan accepted the class leader's position, he would be pulled completely into the system of the clan. From then on, he would enjoy benefits but also bear obligations. And the first thing he would no longer be able to continue doing was blocking the road and extorting his classmates as before. In other words, the academy elder wanted to use the class leader's seat itself to cut away Fang Yuan's fangs and claws, soothing the other students, while at the same time little by little dragging him into the machinery from which he would not easily escape. But Fang Yuan simply did not take the bait. He only gently asked in return, did the academy have any rule saying one absolutely had to accept the class leader's position? The academy elder was left speechless by that question, because of course there was no such rule. So in front of everyone, Fang Yuan smiled in thanks, turned and walked straight back down to his seat, as though he had just refused something not even worth mentioning. That scene threw the whole class into complete disorder. Some cursed him for being crazy, some said he was stupid, some were even absolutely certain that one day he would regret today's decision. And what about Mo Bei's? After several beats of stunned silence, he suddenly realized that the one being pushed up to become class leader now was himself. Fang Zheng also raised his head to look at his elder brother. But this time what he felt was no longer simple jealousy, but an indescribable emptiness. Because the vice leader position he was about to obtain suddenly became strangely dull compared to the figure of the man who had just calmly refused the class leader's seat. As for the academy elder, this time he truly went pale. Not pretending anymore, but genuinely pale. Because he had understood one very unpleasant truth. The move he had carefully prepared to drag Fang Yuan into the system had been openly thrown aside by Fang Yuan right in front of the whole class. The elder had wanted to use the class leader's position to bind him with responsibility, to use honor to tie him to the clan, to use primeval stones to pull him deeper into the system. But Fang Yuan had used one single sentence of refusal to sever all of it. And that was the truly terrifying thing. A person who dared refuse even small power, dared let go of benefits right before his eyes, dared turn his back on temptations that others fought until their eyes turned red. for such a person was already beyond being controlled through ordinary methods. In the end, things still had to continue. Mo Bei became class leader. Fang Zheng and Chi Cheng became vice leaders. Their stipends increased, and the poorer students could only look on with reddened eyes. But deep in the academy elder's heart, that obstruction still remained stuck there. Because he knew very well that what had been lost today was not merely a class leader's position, but a rare opportunity to lock Fang Yuan into the cage called the clan. And this time the cage door had just been opened, and Fang Yuan had already turned and walked away. Dusk settled over King Mao Mountain. The dark red sun silently sank toward the west. The whole region of hills and mountains seemed wrapped in a layer of soft yet hazy light. The stilt houses, the forest. The academy, everything was submerged in gold mixed with red. Beautiful enough that it seemed as though no turbulence could possibly be churning underneath. The students who had just received their primeval stone stipends went out from the academy in little groups. Everyone was cheerful, everyone talking about the same thing. Why had Fang Yuan given up the class leader's position? Some mocked him for being crazy. Some said he had been so traumatized that his mind was no longer normal. Some repeated the scene of him charging into the academy that day, their voices still trembling as though that nightmare had never truly passed. But among those discussions, one person was enjoying an entirely different feeling: Mo Bei. From today onward, he was the class leader, wherever he went. The students bowed their heads and greeted him. And every single class leader that rang out made his heart float in an indescribable way. This was the taste of power. Even if it was only a small position. Even if those bows were only very slight ones. They were still enough to make a 15-year-old youth feel that he was standing one level above the others. Behind him, Chi Cheng was also being addressed by others as vice leader. At first he had felt lucky, because Fang Yuan refused the class leader's position had he been able to squeeze into this role. But after only a few greetings, the desire in his heart began to grow one layer further. If being vice leader already felt this good, then what would being class leader be like? One level stacked on another, one step standing higher than the last. The clan system had never used chains to bind people from the very beginning. It used carrots hung before them. Used the feeling of being respected, used rank and status. Used the tiny greed inside human hearts themselves to drag them step by step deeper inside. But just as those dreams of power were still burning hot, a figure appeared at the academy gate: Fang Yuan. He stood there with his arms folded. His expression was calm, his gaze was as cold as ever. As if from beginning to end, all of today's changes meant absolutely nothing to him. Then he opened his mouth. His voice was not loud, but it was enough to make the youths who had just stepped out freeze where they stood. The old rules. One primeval stone from each person. Fang Zheng was the first to go blank. He looked at his elder brother as if he could not believe what was happening before his eyes. Because now he was a vice leader. And in his mind, a vice leader was no longer an ordinary student. But Fang Yuan's eyes only swept over him very lightly. Then he added one sentence even colder: vice leaders pay 3 stones. Immediately after that, Mo Bei also came over with people behind him. The moment he saw Fang Yuan daring to stand there and block the way, he instantly exploded in anger. Because today he was already class leader. In his mind, that meant things were different now, his status was different now, and he could not continue to be treated as before. He pointed straight at Fang Yuan's face, shouting loudly, demanding that Fang Yuan bow and greet him according to the rules. But what answered him was not words but a fist. Everything happened too fast, so fast that the people around them had no time to react. Mo Bei was beaten backward again and again. Then after only a few short blows, he had already fallen to the ground, unconscious on the spot. At that moment, every illusion that had only just blossomed in the hearts of those youths shattered apart. What of the class leader? What of the vice leaders? What of those newly appointed positions? In front of Fang Yuan, everything still seemed no different from yesterday. The guards at the gate watched all of it, but no one dared step forward. Because they remembered far too clearly the fate of the 2 men who had once tried to touch Fang Yuan before this. So this time they chose the safest thing possible, to stand there blind and deaf. Then Fang Yuan continued by dealing with Fang Zheng and Chi Cheng as well. Just as before, there was not the slightest trace of leniency toward their new positions. After that, he announced the new rules. Ordinary students 1 stone, vice leaders 3 stones, class leader 8 stones. At that exact moment, the youths finally truly understood. Fang Yuan had not refused the class leader's position because he had gone crazy, nor because he did not understand the value of power, but because he understood it too clearly. If he sat in the class leader's seat, he would only gain 10 extra primeval stones each week. But if he remained outside that seat, he could continue extorting the entire class. One round alone was close to 60 stones, now it had risen to 68 stones. In other words, while others were still staring at the titles of class leader and vice leader, Fang Yuan had long since seen where the true profit lay. He refused the position not out of nobility, but because that chair paid far too little compared to the amount of money he could obtain by other means. The more they thought of it, the angrier the youths became, and the angrier they became, the more helpless they felt. Because the final result was still this: class leader, vice leader, or ordinary student all were robbed just the same. And in the end, very little of the extra stipend remained in their hands anyway. Elsewhere, after hearing the report, the academy elder flew into a fury. This time he was angry not only because of the robbery of primeval stones, but because Fang Yuan's actions had struck at something far deeper: the system of the clan itself. What were the class leader and vice leaders for? To create differences, to nurture the desire for power, to make the students believe that climbing 1 step higher would mean living differently. But now, Fang Yuan had used his very fists to level all those differences flat. The class leader was beaten as usual. The vice leaders were robbed as usual. And once positions no longer brought true safety or real benefit, then the attraction of the system itself would begin to shake. That was what made the academy elder turn purple with rage. Outwardly, it looked only like a domineering youth continuing to extort his classmates, but the meaning behind it was this: by himself, Fang Yuan was openly using fists and resources to challenge the way the academy used small powers to mold people's hearts. Unfortunately, the academy elder still could not truly interfere personally, because if he openly stepped in to deal with Fang Yuan, then in the eyes of outsiders, it would become a matter of elders having to act to help their own children, because those children could not defeat another youth. That was a stain that neither the Mo family, the Kai family, nor the clan leader wished to see. So he could only swallow his anger, continue investigating, continue digging deeper into Fang Yuan's past and daily life, wanting to know just what exactly this youth had relied on to reach where he was today. 3 reports lay on the table, one on his family background, one on his life story, one on his recent movements. His parents had died early. He lived under his uncle and aunt's care, but not harmoniously. He had once been praised by others as a genius, only to be dragged down again by those same people after measuring only grade C aptitude. By day he studied in the academy. By night he quietly cultivated in the dormitory. Occasionally he only went out to eat and drink, bought wine and then returned. The more the academy elder read, the more he felt he understood Fang Yuan a little better. His coldness was not without cause. His stubbornness was not without origin. The harshness in his cultivation, the persistence in every one of his actions, all resembled a kind of silent rebellion against the whole world that had once raised him up and then thrown him back down. But understanding was one thing, forgiving was another, because in the elder's eyes, Fang Yuan was still too large a thorn. Something that could not be allowed to continue stabbing so openly into the dignity of the academy forever. Just then, a knocking sound rang out at the door. The one who entered was the clan leader's bodyguard. And with only one glance at his grave expression, it was already clear that this time things were no longer just small waves within the academy. The report came down very briefly, but even the academy elder had to draw a cold breath when he heard it. Gu Fu had returned, and his younger brother Gu Jin Sheng had disappeared. The moon hung suspended among black clouds. Light and shadow, alternately bright and dim, covered the freezing mountain road. The academy elder walked very quickly, so quickly that even his robe hem was pulled crooked by the night wind. because he understood very clearly that this time, it was no longer merely about struggles inside the academy. In this world, the disappearance of a Gu master was not unusual, but others could disappear. Only Gu Jin Sheng absolutely could not, because behind him stood the entire immense Gu clan. His father was the clan leader. His elder brother was Gu Fu, a rank 4 Gu master. If this matter were handled improperly, then the price Gu Yue Mountain Village would have to pay would not stop at a single life. They could lose credibility with the merchant caravan, lose the trade route, lose all the exchanged resources from the outside world as well. Day by day, a mountain village without trade would in the end only decline step by step. So when the academy elder stepped into the council hall, the first thing that struck him was not the lamplight but pressure. Seated at the head was clan leader Gu Yue. Standing in the middle of the great hall with several attendants was Gu Fu himself. He was not sitting and no one else dared sit either. That posture alone was enough to create a plainly oppressive force. The clan leader did not waste words. He asked directly, "Where is Fang Yuan?" The instant he heard that name, the academy elder felt a shock in his heart. He had not expected that in the end this matter would still be dragged to that youth. Before long, Fang Yuan was brought into the council hall. He cupped his hands in greeting. His expression remained calm as ever. He did not look in the slightest like a youth being dragged into the center of a storm. Gu Fu did not question him immediately. Instead, he turned to look at the female Gu master standing beside him. It was the very female Gu master from the stone gambling den, the one who had personally seen Fang Yuan cut open the toadskin earth toad. She only needed one glance at him to immediately confirm this was the person. Because of that, Gu Fu's gaze turned even colder, but he still forced himself not to interrogate Fang Yuan directly. Because this place was Gu Yue clan territory. Even while pressing a charge, he still had to leave Gu Yue clan leader a bit of outward face. And clan leader Gu Yue was not simple either. He looked at that female Gu master and coldly brought up a very small yet extremely dangerous point. Fang Yuan had a twin younger brother. Their appearances were very similar, had she truly seen clearly. Or had she mistaken the person? With that single sentence, the whole great hall silently changed direction. Because it was not only a request for certainty, but also a subtle reminder that the Gu Yue clan would not necessarily be so easy to lead by the nose. Gu Fu stepped one pace forward, blocking the female Gu master's line of sight. Then, although he kept courtesy on the surface, his words already pushed the pressure back. He brought up the prestige of the Gu Yue ancestors, mentioned the 2 rank 5 experts of previous generations, as though he were showing respect. But in truth, he was forcing the clan leader to handle it according to justice, right in front of him. The board had already been pushed to this point, and the clan leader could no longer continue dragging things out. He looked toward Fang Yuan. His voice remained gentle, but each word carried an unpredictable weight. "Do you know Gu Jin Sheng?" And then Fang Yuan answered with one sentence that made the whole hall pause. "Who is Gu Jin Sheng?" The female Gu master from the gambling den immediately reacted. She pointed straight at him, insisting he was lying. Because he was exactly the one who had bought 6 purple stones at the gambling den. He was exactly the one who had opened the toadskin earth toad. And it was exactly Gu Jin Sheng who had tried to offer 500 primeval stones to buy that Gu back. The impression left by that event had been too deep for her to forget. Only after hearing that did Fang Yuan seem to suddenly come to realization. He changed his tone and said that if so, then yes, he did know this person. But since that time at the gambling den, he had not seen the other party again. Unfortunately, before that sentence had even fully landed, another witness jumped out. It was the male Gu master from the tavern. He loudly accused Fang Yuan, saying that night in the tavern itself, he had personally seen Fang Yuan sitting and speaking with Gu Jin Sheng for a long time. The atmosphere in the council hall changed immediately. From suspicion it turned into pressure, all eyes fell upon Fang Yuan. Even the academy elder's face turned completely cold. But the terrifying thing was that even under such pressure, Fang Yuan still did not descend into disorder. He put on an appearance of nervousness, even a trace of guilt, but only just enough. Enough for others to believe he was being cornered, but not enough to reveal any true opening. Then that male Gu master continued and threw out a detail even more frightening. He said that morning in the tavern he had personally seen Fang Yuan release a Gu worm, a liquor worm. A Gu worm so rare that it could refine primeval essence, something many rank 1 Gu masters longed for but could not obtain. The moment those 2 words rang out, the Academy Elder's eyes immediately lit up. He stared fixedly behind Fang Yuan and his voice turned cold at once. "Where did your liquor worm come from?" This time the entire hall truly tightened. Because by now, things were no longer merely about a disappearance. They had begun to touch a deeper secret. Touching Fang Yuan's abnormal path of cultivation. And touching the thing many people had long secretly suspected. The elders pressed in together. One question after another came down like blades. Was the liquor worm Gu Jin Sheng's? Had he stolen it? Was Gu Jin Sheng's disappearance connected to him? And Fang Yuan, at the very moment when he was being hemmed in by that many gazes and that much pressure, suddenly erupted. He raised his head. His voice was full of grievance and anger, as if he could finally no longer endure the injustice. This liquor worm was clearly opened by me myself. With that one sentence alone, the entire council hall froze once more. Because they had not expected that even at this point, he could still keep a defensive posture. Still remain lucid enough to twist away the spear point aimed at him, and even more importantly, that sentence was both aggrieved and tough. As if there were still another layer of secret behind it that had not yet been revealed. Outside, the night grew ever deeper. Inside the council hall, the lights still blazed brightly. And the game around the name Fang Yuan had just been pushed up another level. Because from this moment onward, what everyone wanted to know was no longer only whether Gu Jin Sheng was alive or dead. It was also this, where exactly had Fang Yuan's liquor worm come from? Inside the council hall, the atmosphere had tightened to the extreme. The liquor worm, Gu Jin Sheng, the stone gambling den, the tavern, each clue was like a rope tightening around the name Fang Yuan. If he said one wrong sentence, the entire situation would immediately collapse on top of him. But at exactly that moment, Fang Yuan took the initiative to overturn yet another layer of the curtain. He did not evade any longer, nor continue hiding the matter of the liquor worm, but directly pushed the story all the way through. Yes. The liquor worm had been opened by him, from the 6th stone that he had brought back to the dormitory. The whole hall was instantly shaken. Because just hearing it was already a story so hard to believe that it sounded fabricated. 6 stones. The 5th had opened a toadskin earth toad, and the last one had then opened another liquor worm. That was no longer ordinary luck, but the kind of fortune that made others begin doubting themselves. Immediately, one of the elders in the hall could not hold back from asking in challenge. How could it possibly be such a coincidence? How could one person open 2 rare Gu worms in succession like that? But Fang Yuan did not look guilty at all. On the contrary, he directly pointed toward the female Gu master from the stone gambling den, turning her into a witness for his own case. At that moment, every gaze in the council hall turned toward her again. And under that pressure, the female Gu master could only speak the truth. Yes, he had indeed bought 6 stones. Yes, the 5th had indeed opened a toadskin earth toad. And yes, the 6th had indeed been carried away by him. Only what exactly had been inside it that she did not know, that alone was enough. Because what Fang Yuan had needed had never been absolute proof. He only needed a crack, a gray area large enough for his words to stand firmly. The elders began to waver, some muttered about luck. Some brought up once again that stone gambling could never be judged by ordinary logic. Others countered that a Gu worm just opened from stone was usually extremely weakened. So it was not in fact impossible for a youth to refine it in a short time. Sentence by sentence, word by word, each thought in the hall was being led farther and farther away from the original focus. And what had the original focus been? That Gu Jin Sheng had disappeared, who had killed him. And whether Fang Yuan was connected to it. But now everyone had fallen into something else. They were arguing about the odds of opening stones, about refining Gu worms, about luck. About whether the liquor worm could really have come from the final stone. That was the most frightening thing about Fang Yuan. He did not hurry to refute each accusation, he merely shifted the focus. Shift it once and the entire situation shifted with it. Then he continued telling the story, half true and half false, woven together so tightly that it was almost impossible to unravel. He said that after obtaining the liquor worm, he had gone to the tavern to ask its value. He said that he had never actually intended to sell it, because what he needed was to use it to compensate for the weakness of his aptitude. At the very least, he had planned to wait until rank 2 before considering changing hands. And it was precisely in that tavern that he had met Gu Jin Sheng again. A man drowning his sorrows in drink. A man who had just suffered humiliation before his elder brother, a man who, upon learning that Fang Yuan held a liquor worm, had immediately been tempted to force a purchase. That narration fit together so neatly it was almost irritating. It fit in that it connected perfectly with what others had seen. It fit in that it explained why someone had witnessed the two of them sitting and talking. More than that, it also quietly dragged the conflict between Gu Fu and Gu Jin Sheng directly onto the table. And once that conflict between the brothers was exposed under the lights of the council hall, the eyes of the elders turned toward Gu Fu also began to change in subtle ways. Gu Fu naturally noticed that. He immediately pressed his questions even harder, wanting to use his force of presence to crush the youth before him, wanting to ask to the end whether Fang Yuan had seen Gu Jin Sheng again after leaving the tavern. But Fang Yuan did nothing except continue denying it, his voice not trembling, his rhythm not disordered, and his back not bent in the slightest. And then the whole situation began to fall into deadlock. There was no direct evidence. No witness who had seen the final part with his own eyes, no Gu worm, no robbed primeval stones. No remaining key trace of any kind. Clan leader Gu Yue sat high above, and by this point even he had begun to lose patience. Because in his eyes Gu Fu had already pressed far too hard, and the harder he pressed, the more it made the Gu clan look like they were sliding Gu Yue mountain village right in the middle of its own council hall. So he changed direction, no longer asking about Fang Yuan, but instead asking directly about motive. If the murderer had not taken the Gu worm, had not taken the primeval stones, had not kidnapped the man for ransom, then why had he killed Gu Jin Sheng at all? The moment that question was laid down, the whole council hall abruptly fell silent. Because yes, to kill someone, there had to be a reason, a value, a benefit. And if all the obvious reasons failed to match, then the true answer must necessarily lie elsewhere. And exactly then, Fang Yuan delivered his deepest cut. He did not shout, did not raise his voice. He merely looked toward Gu Fu with complete calm and tossed out one sentence, as though it were only some casual guess. Or was it you who killed Gu Jin Sheng? After all, if your younger brother dies, then the share of the inheritance you receive will be larger. Immediately, the entire hall seemed to have been thrown into cold water. Some elders shouted in anger, some accused him of insolence, some said he must not slander recklessly. But all those shouted rebukes had already come too late. Because Fang Yuan had never needed others to instantly believe his words. He only needed to plant an idea, a tiny seed. A possibility that at first hearing sounded insane, but the more one thought about it, the more reasonable it seemed. And just as he had wanted, the whole council hall began to think in that direction. Not that Gu Fu had acted personally, but that this was internal struggle within the Gu clan. With only those 4 words, the entire case instantly opened onto a completely different road. If this was an internal dispute of the Gu clan, if behind it lay a struggle over inheritance between brothers, if Gu Gui or some other faction truly wanted to harm Gu Fu by pinning Gu Jin Sheng's death onto him, then suddenly everything could be explained. The murderer would have to be seasoned, would have to know how to erase traces, would have to have enough experience to cut away every clue, and would have to be ruthless enough to strike cleanly. Could someone like that really be a 15-year-old youth like Fang Yuan? At that very moment, the suspicion toward him began to disperse like a thin mist. Even the academy elder standing behind him suddenly understood everything in that direction. From the liquor worm, the stone gambling, the tavern, all the way to the way he had hidden part of the matter with half-truths and half-lies. In the elder's eyes at this moment, Fang Yuan no longer looked like the murderers, but rather like an unlucky youth who had happened to be swept into the final segment of a much greater scheme. And what about Gu Fu? His face had darkened like ink. Because he himself also understood that once the 4 words internal struggle within the Gu family had been spoken in this place, then whether they were true or not, everyone would begin to think in that direction. And once that thought had formed, it would be like water sinking into sand, impossible to gather back, impossible to pretend it had never existed. Fang Yuan stood in the middle of the great hall. On the surface, he still wore the look of stubbornness, of someone being pressed until he could hardly breathe. But beneath those lowered lashes was a coldness so sharp it was almost mocking. Because he knew very clearly that from this moment onward, he had truly washed away the suspicion from himself. Not by proving that he was innocent, but by making the entire council hall believe that there was another truth far more reasonable. And that was the most frightening strike of all. If you want others to believe in a possibility, you do not need to force them. You only need to guide them into seeing that path through their own thinking. And now, every gaze in the council hall had finally stopped truly looking at him. Instead, they were gradually shifting somewhere else, to another name, to a much deeper whirlpool, the internal struggle of the Gu family. At this moment, Gu Fu was truly in disarray. In his heart, he had almost already decided that the one behind everything was Gu Gui. But so what if he knew the truths? Without evidence, there was nothing he could do. If he rushed to expose Gu Gui in front of his father just like this, then the one accused of deliberately framing someone else would most likely become him instead. At just that moment, Gu Fu's gaze suddenly stopped on Fang Yuan. Gu Jin Sheng had followed him for many years. Now that he had disappeared, Gu Fu naturally had to bear responsibility. If he could not find the real murderer, then at the very least he had to have an explanation. And that explanation was now standing right in front of him, Fang Yuan. Almost in the span of an instant, Gu Fu had an idea. If he could not expose Gu Gui, then he would drag Fang Yuan out to bear the blame instead. First get through the immediate crisis, and the rest of this debt could be settled later. So he immediately changed his tone and pressed the question loudly right in the middle of the council hall. Fang Yuan, how do you prove that you did not murder Gu Jin Sheng? The elders of the Gu Yue clan were all stunned when they heard this. This had originally been an internal struggle of the Gu family, yet now Gu Fu wanted to keep hold of one of their own clansmen and not let go. Everyone's expression immediately turned ugly. Only clan leader Gu Yubo's face visibly darkened and his eyes turned cold, but Gu Fu did not stop. He pointed straight at Fang Yuan, his tone becoming more and more oppressive. If you have no witness to prove that you were not at the scene, then you are the murderer. At this point, the elders fully understood. Gu Fu was clearly trying to push Fang Yuan out as a scapegoat. Fang Yuan, however, was very calm inside, because he had already prepared his way out long ago. But outwardly he still acted with perfect realism. His face was wronged, his eyes full of resentment. His lips moved as though he wanted to explain, yet also as though he had been pushed so far that he no longer knew what to say. Gu Fu did not give him the chance to drag things out and continued to press him. Do you, or do you not? At last, Fang Yuan seemed to have been pushed to the end of the road and could only grit his teeth and squeeze out 2 words. No. Gu Fu immediately wanted to seize that moment to convict him, but right then wait. The academy elder stepped forward, blocking directly in front of Fang Yuan. His expression hardened, and though his voice was not loud, it was extremely clear. He has a witness. I am his witness. Even Gu Fu had to pause. The academy elder continued over the past few days, because he had seen Fang Yuan unexpectedly take the lead in advancing to middle stage. The academy had secretly arranged for people to watch his movements. Every day where he went and what he did had all been recorded clearly. And according to what the academy knew, Fang Yuan had absolutely no time to make a move against Gu Jin Sheng. When he heard this, Gu Fu's face immediately turned pale. He had not expected the academy elder to come forward and vouch for Fang Yuan. Even more unexpectedly, clan leader Gu Yue did not object. That detail alone was enough for him to understand. The upper ranks of the Gu Yue clan wanted to keep Fang Yuan. Only then did Gu Fu fully react. If he kept stubbornly forcing a man whose suspicion had already been washed away to accept guilt, Then the Gu Yue clan would bear the stigma of scheming against a clansman of the Gu family. Their reputation would be damaged, the merchant caravan would be affected, and later they might even face retaliation from the Gu family. The price was too great, but even at this point he still refused to give up. Gu Fu gritted his teeth and proposed using another Gu to continue the investigation, track foot Gu. This kind of Gu could reveal the last 30,000 footprints of a person. The academy elder was very displeased when he heard this, but he had no reason to stop it. Fang Yuan only smiled faintly and stepped forward. He was very confident. Because over the past few days, he had only moved within the mountain village and had never set foot in the cave hidden in the rock crevice. Under the gaze of everyone present, Gu Fu activated the track foot Gu. The Gu gradually lit up in his hand. Then suddenly, with a soft pop, it exploded into a cloud of pale green fluorescent powder. That glowing dust circled around Fang Yuan once, then buzzed and flew straight out the door. Wherever it swept past, glowing footprints immediately appeared on the ground, joining together in an unbroken line. From the clan leader's pavilion to the academy dormitory, then around the academy grounds. Aside from that, he had only gone to the inn inside the village. When the fluorescent powder finally vanished at the 30,000th footprint, the result had already become very clear. Fang Yuan's movements were completely clean. There was not a single suspicious point. At this stage, everyone thought the matter should be over. But Gu Fu still refused to stop. From within his robe, he then took out an exquisite jade box. When he opened it, inside lay a half-translucent piece of green jade. And sealed within that jade was a Gu worm. A tiny bamboo beetle, its body long like a section of bamboo, green as jade, with a faint white glow covering its exterior. One of the elders recognized it the moment he saw it. That is Bamboo Gentleman. Even clan leader Gu Yue showed surprise. He even spoke to dissuade him because this was a rank 4 Gu worm, exceedingly rare and not easy to refine. Using it here was truly too great a waste. But Gu Fu only shook his head. He explained clearly that Bamboo Gentleman fed on sincerity. It was born with the ability to detect lies. Only those who were utterly truthful, who from childhood to adulthood had never told a single lie, could refine and nourish it. Then he looked directly at Fang Yuan and said, "You need only open the seal and draw it into your aperture. I will ask what I ask and you answer. If afterward Bamboo Gentleman changes color, that means you are lying." It was almost an impossible test to evade. Yet what astonished everyone was that Fang Yuan did not hesitate at all. No problem. After saying that, he immediately did as asked. The moment Bamboo Gentleman entered his aperture, its pale green light immediately spread across his entire primeval sea. Fang Yuan could feel it very clearly. If he told even a single lie, this Gu would detect it at once. But he had already prepared for this. With a single thought, the spring-autumn cicada sleeping in his aperture immediately awoke. An ancient, immense, boundless aura surged out. The moment it appeared, it directly suppressed Bamboo Gentleman until it could not even lift its head. Its green light immediately shrank back. Its entire body curled into a ball, trembling violently, with no strength left to sense lies at all. At that point, Gu Fu began questioning him. The first question struck straight at the heart of the matter. "Fang Yuan, did you kill Gu Jin Sheng?" "No." Fang Yuan answered decisively. "Do you know any other information related to him?" "I do not." "Is there anything untrue in what you just said?" "No." 3 questions, 3 answers. Brief, decisive, not revealing the slightest sign of wavering. By the time Bamboo Gentleman was taken out again in front of everyone, its color remained exactly the same green as before. It had not changed. A group of elders all let out a breath of relief together. That also meant that, at least in front of everyone standing there, Fang Yuan had completely washed away the suspicion from himself. Gu Fu's expression at last eased slightly. He took back Bamboo Gentleman, clasped his hands toward clan leader Gu Yue, and offered his apology. On the surface, the clan leader did not blame him and only sighed over that Gu worm. Because although Bamboo Gentleman was extremely precious, it was too difficult to nourish. It could only live by feeding on the sincerity inside the aperture of a true gentleman. But now that its seal had been opened and there was no suitable person to raise it, And since it had already been used once, its death had almost certainly become inevitable. But Gu Fu seemed no longer to care about that. He said heavily that this time he had exhausted every means of investigation but still did not have sufficient ability. After returning to his clan, he would spend a great sum to invite the divine constable Tai Zhu Leng to continue the investigation. And he would definitely get to the bottom of this matter. After saying that, he clasped his hands in farewell and turned to leave immediately, without lingering any further. Watching Gu Fu and his group disappear, clan leader Gu Yue finally let out a true breath of relief. He waved his hand and told all the elders to withdraw. But before everyone left, he still kept the academy elder behind. As for Fang Yuan, from beginning to end he had not lost so much as a single hair, and just like that, he left the clan leader's pavilion in complete safety. The academy elder bowed respectfully, thinking the clan leader wanted to ask about what had just happened, but Gu Yue did not speak of it directly. He only lightly gestured for him to sit, then slowly began telling a story about Renzu. In those days, Renzu subdued two special Gu compass and square. One was round, one was square. Together, they could capture countless Gu worms under heaven. Renzu used them to catch lifespan Gu and regain his youth, and then wanted to use them again to gather all Gu into his own hands. At first hearing, it sounded like a myth. But the more the academy elder listened, the more he realized that the clan leader was not simply telling a story. He was alluding to Fang Yuan. Because although Renzu had used compass and square to capture many Gu worms, in the end he still had not truly kept them, wisdom Gu in particular. To keep it, rules alone were not enough. One also had to possess one's own true capability. The academy elder immediately understood part of the meaning. He looked at the clan leader and carefully asked, "Did you mean that I should stop suppressing Fang Yuan?" Gu Yue did not answer at once. He only sighed and spoke one very light sentence: "The academy is small, the clan is large." That single sentence alone drew the distance between the two of them. In the eyes of the academy elder, Fang Yuan was a dangerous, unruly student, hard to control, repeatedly breaking order. But in the eyes of the clan leader, Fang Yuan was not only trouble, he was also a whetstone. The clan leader spoke very clearly. He had long known that Fang Zheng had been suppressed by his elder brother. And he had also known that Fang Yuan repeatedly robbed and oppressed the others. But he had not stopped it at all. Because in his eyes, that very oppression was tempering the younger generation such as Fang Zheng, Mo Bei, and Chi Cheng. It forced them to become stronger, forced them to rise again, forced them to grow. The academy elder still felt uneasy when he heard this. He feared that if things were simply left alone, the raw jade would be ground to pieces before it ever took shape. Especially now that Fang Yuan also possessed a liquor worm, making him almost even harder to deal with at this rank 1 stage. But Gu Yue's coldness was frightening. He said it outright: if they cannot rise, then so be it. If they already had elders backing them, people expecting things of them and people lifting them up, yet still were pressed down by a single Fang Yuan until they lost their will, then such people were not worth the clan's effort to cultivate in the first place. Only after hearing this did the academy elder finally realize that the clan leader's perspective was on an entirely different level from his own. One was thinking about order within the academy. The other was thinking about how to produce strength for the entire clan, and not only that. Gu Yue said clearly that beginning tomorrow he himself would secretly guide Fang Zheng. In other words, outwardly he would allow Fang Yuan to continue running rampant. But in the shadows, he had already begun cultivating someone capable of opposing him. This was no longer a matter of dealing with a single student, it was already strategy. Only now did the academy elder gradually understand. But Gu Yue still had not finished. He looked directly at him and said, "You have been the academy elder for many years, yet even now you are still only the academy elder. That is not without reason. Your greatest problem lies not in your ability but in the fact that your heart is too narrow." He said it plainly. The academy elder's continual suppression of Fang Yuan was not purely for the sake of the clan. It was also because Fang Yuan had made him lose face before, had touched his authority before. That was the deepest cut of all. The clan leader was not only teaching him how to look at the larger picture, he was also stripping bare his selfish motives in the process. Then Gu Yue went on to speak of Fang Yuan. In his eyes, this youth was indeed clever, but not yet to the point of becoming too frightening. He was still immature, still impulsive, still carrying the resentment of a genius who had fallen to the bottom. His beating of the guards, his wish to hide the liquor worm in the clan leader's eyes, these were not signs of someone unfathomably deep. On the contrary, they only showed that he was still young, still angry, still insufficiently mature. So Gu Yue's conclusion was extremely clear. Fang Yuan was dissatisfied with the clan, so let him vent his anger. If an ant spits at an elephant, would the elephant care? He believed that after venting enough resentment, Fang Yuan would sooner or later return and merge back into the clan. Because a clan existed not only by rules but also by something deeper than that. Bloodline, kinship, rules were dead things. People were living things. If one only knew how to use rules to press down on someone, then one was no different from personally pushing that person even farther away. But Fang Yuan was different. No matter what, he was still Fang Zheng's twin elder brother. Only when he heard that sentence did the academy elder truly awaken. The clan leader had no intention of destroying Fang Yuan, nor of forcing him to the end of the road. He wanted to keep him, bind him with the clan, bind him with bloodline, use Fang Zheng as the thread tying him to the Gu Yue clan. At last Gu Yue looked out the window, where moonlight hung silently in the night, then spoke a sentence as if to conclude everything. The sea becomes great because it can contain 100 rivers. The academy elder lowered his head, accepted the order and withdrew. And anyone who had heard all this would gradually realize that this clan was not simple. And this clan leader was even less muddle-headed than he appeared. He knew Fang Yuan was dangerous, knew he was hard to control, yet still wanted to keep him because in his eyes, a piece like that would be more regrettable to destroy than to absorb. It was only that he still did not know one thing. The person he believed he could keep with kinship and time was not an ordinary youth, but someone who had lived too long and looked upon this world with a coldness greater than anyone else's. The night on King Mao Mountain shone brightly beneath the moon. Gu Fu's group rode on the backs of the giant toads, leaving Gu Yue Mountain Village and following the mountain road onward. The wind screamed by their ears, no one spoke. Every face was heavy, especially Gu Fu's, cold enough to terrify. After traveling for a while, one of his trusted followers could not hold back any longer. In a low voice, he asked how they were supposed to explain matters to the clan head after returning, now that Gu Jin Sheng was dead. He even suggested finding someone to bear the blame. But Gu Fu only shook his head. He did not answer directly, but suddenly brought up a story of Renzu. He said that in the past, Renzu had once captured 3 Gu, Attitude Gu, Faith Gu, and Doubt Gu. The 3 Gu begged to make a wager. As long as Renzu opened the net, they would fly off in 3 different directions. Whoever was caught again would submit. Then Gu Fu asked his follower in return, guess which one Renzu caught in the end. The follower thought for a while and answered, Attitude Gu. Only then did Gu Fu laugh coldly. Because in his eyes the story was very simple. Faith was one thing, doubt was one thing, but the most important thing of all was still attitude. He had already done everything he could do. The moment Gu Jin Sheng disappeared, he had immediately investigated within the merchant caravan. The moment a lead appeared, he had gone straight to Gu Yue Mountain Village without resting. Right in front of people from another tribe, he had directly demanded answers. He had even brought out the rank 4 bamboo gentleman for use. Now, on returning, he even intended to spend a great sum to invite the divine constable Tai Zhu Leng to continue the investigation. Having spoken that far, Gu Fu had completely thought it through. He no longer needed to find a scapegoat. Because if he now deliberately pushed the crime onto someone else, that might not save him at all. On the contrary, it might very easily cause him to fall into Gu Gui's plot. If he could find someone to bear the guilt, then the other side could also find someone to overturn the board. To put it plainly, what Gu Fu wanted to preserve now was not the truth, but his own position in front of his father. As long as he showed enough of the attitude expected of an elder brother, that would be enough. But the moment Gu Yue's name was brought up, Gu Fu's face changed again. The anger in his eyes almost flared into reality. In his heart now, the murderer behind everything had almost already been locked onto one single person, Gu Yue. He ground his teeth, his hatred twisting his face. In the past, he had still held back out of brotherly regard. But now that the other party had dared strike so viciously, he could not blame him for turning ruthless in return. And just as Gu Fu's group was leaving through the darkness, on a distant mountainside there was still one person standing there and watching it all. Fang Yuan. He stood there silently. From beginning to end he never spoke, only watched the figures of that group gradually disappear behind the trees. The moon tonight was very beautiful, bright enough that the whole forested mountain range seemed coated in a pale silver sheen. Range after range of mountains stretched on without end, trees stood thick and dense, and the winding road extended outward through the distance. At last Gu Fu's group vanished completely into the night. Only then did Fang Yuan truly relax inside. The matter of killing Gu Jin Sheng was finally considered past. Ever since the night he made his move, he had thought through countless things. He knew very clearly that with his current identity and strength, the moment the truth was exposed, the Gu Yue clan would certainly not hesitate to sacrifice him in order to preserve the larger picture. So he could not merely hide, and he could not allow events to develop toward the point where he was pressed into a dead end. If he wanted to survive, there was only one way left: shift the calamity onto someone else. As early as several days before, he had already begun laying out the board. First, he borrowed those 2 guards to act out a scene right in front of the academy elder. After that, he deliberately concealed the existence of the liquor worm, causing both the academy and the upper ranks of the clan to begin paying attention to him. Next, he intentionally robbed his classmates, putting on the appearance of someone immature, overbearing, and dissatisfied with the clan. None of those things had been impulsive, they were all acting. He had deliberately made everyone see a Fang Yuan who was young, irritable, easy to provoke, full of resentment toward the clan, but not yet deep enough to hide everything completely. So that when Gu Fu appeared in the Great Hall, he only needed to finish acting out the remaining part. To act out panic, to act out immaturity, to act out the feeling of being pressed until there was no way left to retreat. And that very appearance made others believe on their own that he was not the person behind the whole matter. Most crucially of all, he had made use of the opposition between Gu Fu and the Gu Yue clan so that, in the end, even the academy elder who had originally been suspicious of him had to come forward and testify on his behalf. As for Bamboo Gentleman, that had been nothing more than a small variable. But in his hands, even that variable became the strongest evidence to wash away the suspicion from himself. After everything was over, not only had he protected himself, he had also smoothly pushed suspicion onto Gu Yue's head, shattered the trap, and stepped out almost entirely unscathed. Standing on the mountainside, Fang Yuan continued calculating. The academy elder had been kept behind. That meant the clan leader had already begun stepping into the affairs of the academy. And that also meant the suppression aimed at him would very likely be brought to a stop. But in Fang Yuan's eyes, that was not because the clan leader valued him. The real reason was still Fang Zheng. It was he himself who had deliberately made the matter large, stirred up the waters, forced the upper ranks of the clan to pay attention. As long as the affair grew large enough, then whether it was the clan leader or the other elders, they would ultimately have to step in to defend the prestige and dignity of the clan. As for Gu Fu, the outcome was also exactly as he had predicted. Now in that man's heart, Gu Yue had already almost certainly become the true murderer. The fire of vengeance had been lit. From this moment onward, the conflict between those 2 brothers would certainly be driven even higher. Even Fang Yuan could not help feeling a trace of anticipation. He very much wanted to know just how far the struggle between those 2 men would be stirred up after his own intervention. He even thought of the future Gu fighting assembly. Perhaps because of this matter, it might even arrive ahead of time. As for Tai Zuleng, when that name entered his thoughts, Fang Yuan only smiled faintly. That was indeed a formidable figure of the righteous path, but Fang Yuan was not overly worried. Because the man was extremely busy. Inviting someone like him to come investigate a matter here was absolutely not an easy thing. Gu Fu, because he wished to show the proper attitude, would certainly invite him. But however fast it might be, it would still take at least 1 or 2 years, perhaps even 2 or 3. And by that time, everything would already be different. If he had that amount of time, then at the very least, his cultivation would already have stepped into rank 2. And perhaps he would have gone even farther. When that time came, the road before him would already be wholly transformed. The night wind came out of the forest, carrying the cool scent of grass and trees. Fang Yuan took a deep breath and his spirit grew even more clear. He looked into the distance. Before him lay layer after layer of mountains. A bright moon hung high, and the scenery was peaceful to the point of seeming almost unreal. Then he softly recited 2 lines of verse. Bright moon shining through the pine forest. Clear spring flowing over the stones. In that night, he thought again of a fable from his previous life. A troop of monkeys saw the moon's reflection in a well and thought it was the real moon, so they linked themselves together and tried to fish it out. But the moment their hands touched the water, the surface rippled and the moon vanished with it. People in the world were often like that. What they saw was not necessarily real. More often than not, it was only the moon's reflection in the well, an illusion before the eyes, an obsession in the heart. Then beneath the moonlit night on King Mao Mountain, Fang Yuan quietly spoke his own aspiration. In this life, he did not want to be the moon's reflection in the water. He wanted to become the true moon hanging high in the sky, cross 1,000 mountains, pass through seas of cloud, shine upon all ages, and stride through every dark region beneath heaven. Beneath the round moon, the youth's figure was still thin and solitary, his shadow engraved upon the blue stone underfoot. The sky of early summer was very still. The moon was no longer as dazzling as the night before, but the stars overhead had grown thick and dense. The whole Gu Yue mountain village lay immersed in lamplight and insect song. Seen from afar, it was at once peaceful and quiet. Yet Fang Yuan was not inside the village. He was beneath that secret rock crevice again. Half kneeling before the stone wall, one hand pressed against the cold rock face, he silently directed primeval essence into the moonlight goo. Waves of pale blue light flashed again and again, slowly wearing away the wall before him. The stone wall by now no longer looked special. The images that had once appeared on it had long since vanished. At a glance, it looked no different from ordinary mountain rock. If one did not clearly remember the exact place, no one would guess that behind it was hidden the inheritance of the flower wine traveler. In truth, Fang Yuan had known about this place for a long time. It was only that over the past month or more, he had had absolutely no chance to return. Because it was also in this very place that he had killed Gu Jin Sheng. That night he had to clean the scene. After that, he had to continue making arrangements, guarding against investigation from Gu Fu as well as from the clan. His activities had been almost completely confined within the village, only after Gu Fu left. After the academy elder stopped investigating, and after the rumors gradually died down, did he truly gain the opportunity to slip back here? But even after returning, he did not hurry at all. He did not use a hammer, he did not use a pickaxe. He certainly did not leave behind any suspicious noise. He only used the moonlight goo, little by little grinding through the wall. Very slowly, very laboriously, but also very safely. This was already the 6th day. At his feet, pale red stone dust had piled into a thick mound. The soil and rock here were also very strange. They were not dark like the ordinary mountain earth of King Mao Mountain, but pale red, and even gave off a faint glow on their own. Thanks to that, one could still see inside the cave, and he had no need to carry a torch that might arouse someone's suspicion. The primeval essence in his aperture was gradually running dry, sweat wet his forehead. Both legs were numb from squatting too long. But Fang Yuan still did not stop. He tapped lightly on the stone wall. The echo that came back had already changed, it was thin now. Thinking this, he gritted his teeth and continued pouring primeval essence into the moonlight goo. The blue moonlight flashed again and again, until after a moment the wall was finally pierced through with a small hole. Without hesitation, he immediately withdrew and then kicked hard. With a crash, that small hole was instantly smashed wider. But right after that, Fang Yuan did not rush in. He sensed a stifling current of air from inside slowly spilling outward. So he chose to retreat from the rock crevice and wait a while for the stale air to disperse before returning. This time, only then did he continue widening the entrance. At times he used moonlight goo. At times he pushed with his hands. At times he kicked with his feet. After a while, the entrance was at last wide enough for one person to crawl through. From outside, inside was a tunnel slanting downward. The first stretch was very narrow, so narrow that one had to bend over to enter. But the deeper it went, the wider the passage became. The surrounding walls were still made of that strange red earth, giving off a dim light sufficient to illuminate the path stretching endlessly into the darkness. By this point, an ordinary person would likely have entered immediately, but Fang Yuan did not. He stood motionless at the entrance, narrowing his eyes as he looked inward, and began weighing every possibility in his mind. Because he knew very clearly that inheritance and hidden treasure were two entirely different things. A hidden treasure was something a dead person left behind. Whoever found it simply picked it up. But an inheritance was something deliberately arranged. The person leaving it behind would set up one pass after another, one trial after another, selecting the person he wanted to choose. And the purpose for which the flower wine traveler had left this place was already very clear. He wanted to find an inheritor to take revenge on the Gu Yue clan in his stead. Because of that, Fang Yuan did not dare be careless in the slightest. If it were a righteous path inheritance, failure might not necessarily mean death. But if it were a demonic path inheritance, then it was entirely different. Some were extremely troublesome, layers upon layers of riddles that could trap a person for life. Some were suspiciously simple, looking like a heaven-sent opportunity, but in truth being a deadly trap. Some demonic overlords before death even deliberately set up huge snares for the sole purpose of dragging others to die with them. And the flower wine traveler was precisely a man of the demonic path. So although Fang Yuan looked calm on the outside, inwardly he maintained full caution. He bent down, picked up a stone, and threw it straight into the cave. The stone rolled down the tunnel, striking repeatedly, the sounds echoing and then gradually fading away. From the sound of it, no mechanism seemed to have been triggered. But that still was not enough to reassure him. He continued sprinkling a thin layer of stone dust around the newly opened tunnel entrance. Even at the outer entrance to the rock crevice, he scattered another thin layer. That was not a needless action. If after he left, someone entered this place, the traces left behind on that dust would tell him immediately. After finishing everything, Fang Yuan still did not enter the inheritance that very night. He crawled back out of the rock crevice and retraced his original route to the outside. He went to a hiding place in the grass near the riverbank, took out green bamboo wine and drank it. He even deliberately wet his clothes so that his whole body reeked of alcohol. Only then did he return to the dormitory in the mountain village, with the appearance of someone dead drunk. Everything happened to fall exactly at midnight. By doing this, he could leave behind a perfectly natural cover. Out before midnight, back after midnight. And something like this was not Fang Yuan's first time doing it. Earlier, when he had gone looking for the liquor worm, he had done something similar as well. There was already precedent, so even if anyone paid attention this time, they would not find it too unusual. That night passed just like that. Outside, the stars faded and dawn gradually approached. And inside, a demonic inheritance had just been officially opened by him, yet Fang Yuan still did not hurry to step into it. Because he understood one thing all too well. A true opportunity usually belonged only to those patient enough to survive until the very end.